ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going over Mastery Quiz number 5, specifically on two-step equations. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through the problem using the steps that we learned in class so that you can go through your Mastery Quiz and find where you made your errors. So let's get started with number 1. Number 1 was 3x minus 2 equals 16. Whenever we see an equation, what is the first thing we should always look for? That's right, the distributive property. Is the distributive property visible in this equation? No, it's not. So you can just make a check and move on to the second thing we should look for in an equation. And what is that? Like terms. Do you see any like terms on either side of the equation? No, we don't. So number 2 is completed, and we can move on to step 3. What's step 3? That's right, the inverse of addition or subtraction, positive or negative numbers. And so let's look. Oh, I see, when I separate this out, I see a negative 2. So what is the inverse of negative 2? Very good. Add 2 to both sides. And as we can see, negative 2 plus 2 is 0, so we can cross that off. We're left with 3x on this side of the equal sign. 16 plus 2 is 18. The reason we got 18 is because we looked. 16 is positive, 2 is positive. Signs are the same, so we're going to add. All right, so now we've left with 3x equal to 18. We've done step 3, we move on to step 4. And what is step 4? That's right, the inverse of multiplication or division. And in this problem we see 3 and an x. And that indicates multiplication. So we're going to do the opposite, which is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is just 1, so we get x all by itself. 18 divided by 3 is 6. X is equal to 6. Of course, we can go back and check our answer by using our answer in the original problem. So, how do we do that? 3 times 6 minus 2 equals 16. And let's see what we get. 3 times 6 is 18. 18 minus 2 is 16, so it checks out. We got the correct answer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to move on to problem number 2. Make sure you have your Mastery Quiz out and look at problem number 2. Problem number 2 was 5 minus 6x equals 47. Once again, we look at this problem, we see, okay, it's an equation, so I'm going to follow our steps. And the first thing I always look for is, that's right, the distributive property. Do I see the distributive property in this problem? No, so I'm going to move on. What's the second thing I'm going to look for? Like terms. Are there any like terms on this side? No. Any like terms on this? No. So I can move on to step 3. Step 3 is, it is looking for the inverse of addition and subtraction, positive and negative numbers. So let's look at this problem. I see a subtraction problem. However, 6 times x, that's multiplication. So I got to look at the 5. The 5 doesn't have a symbol in front of it. Therefore, I know it's positive. Okay? So I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtract 5 from both sides. Why do we have to subtract 5 from both sides? It's called the property of equality. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other side to stay, yes, balanced. Okay. This cancels out, we get 0, because positive 5 take away 5 is 0. So over here we're left with negative 6x. Do not forget the negative sign. And this is equal to 47 minus 5. 47 is positive. 5 is negative. So if I think different signs, I'm going to subtract. So 47 minus 5 is 42. And I know it's positive 42 because the 47 is the larger number and that is a positive number. All right, so now I look at my problem. Step 3 is completed, so I move on to step 4. What is step 4? Yes, the inverse of multiplication and division. We already discussed that this is a multiplication problem, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide. So I can isolate the variable and figure out what it is. Okay. I know that negative 6 divided by negative 6 equals 1. So I'm left with x all by itself. 42 divided by negative 6 is, it is negative 7. How did I know it was negative? Because whenever you're dividing and the signs are different, your answer is going to be negative. So now we can go back and check. We can take our answer and put it into the original equation and see if we got the correct answer. So let's go ahead and do that. The original equation was 5 minus 6. Now I know what x is. X is negative 7 equals 47. So let's work this out. 5, what is negative 6 times negative 7? Positive 42. The signs are the same. They cancel each other out and you get a positive. And this equals 47. Let's check it out. What is 5 plus 42? Yes, it is 47. It checks out. We've completed the problem correct. Make sure you check to see where you made your error and make that correction on your quiz.